Hey guys, my name's Colin and this is my review of the Nike Pegasus Trail 3 after 100 kilometers. So let's get right into it and start things off with the fit. So these fit true to size. I'm a 10.5 in all my Nike runners, and this is a 10.5 and it fits perfect. So this is basically the exact same shoe as the prior version of this model from the midsole down. They did make some changes on the upper here, which did affect the fit a little bit. It took a little while to break this upper in and get the proper fit for my foot specifically, especially in this heel area. On the prior Pegasus Trail 2 model, they had these little Achilles pillows inside here on the heel area, which in my opinion helped with comfort, but especially helped with your heel being locked in. So they decided to go with a little more streamlined upper here in the Peg Trail 3s, but they removed that Achilles pillow in the heel. So on my first few runs in this sneaker, I found that the lockdown wasn't that great. But once I broke that upper in, I was able to figure out a good fit for my foot specifically, and the heel felt a little bit better than those initial first few runs. However, for me personally, the lockdown fit isn't as good as the prior Pegasus Trail 2 model. The changes in the upper here when it comes to the midfoot, I think have improved for lockdown. However, the lack of heel lockdown on my initial few runs is something to be aware of. The toe box is almost identical to the prior Pegasus model in terms of fit. It was kind of roomy, a little more wide than some Nike runners, so that's definitely a good thing. So next up is the traction. This would still be considered a bit of a hybrid model. So the lug depth isn't going to be that deep, and it still has that Nike rubber compound that they use on most trail shoes, which don't perform the best in wet conditions. They become a little slippy over wet roots and rocks. However, because of the lack of lug depth on the Pegasus Trail 3, you get a little bit more surface area when you're in those wet situations. So it seems like these are a little less slippy than some of the other Nike trail shoes that have a little more lug depth. I did take these on a lot of technical terrain, and they're not necessarily built for that type of running, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend this sneaker for some of the really technical stuff because of that lack of traction and lug depth. But when you're on a trail that is buffed out, much less technical and dry, these perform really, really good. Next up is the cushion. A lot of the Nike running lineup in general tends to keep the exact same midsole for usually 2 iterations, usually with just an upper change to the newer version. So it's the exact same thing here in the Pegasus Trail 3. Ends up being an identical midsole to the prior Pegasus Trail 2 model, which isn't necessarily a bad thing when it comes to this sneaker. Most people have experienced the React foam now, and they know how soft and cushioned it actually is. So it's no different here in the Pegasus Trail 3. It's really soft, really comfortable. I love React foam. It feels great underfoot. Like I said before, I don't think this is necessarily built for a lot of technical terrain, so I didn't really notice the heel instability on flat, buffed out trails. But because of the way this midsole is built up in the heel, there was some lack of stability in the heel going laterally on the more technical terrain that I took these on. But again, I don't think these are necessarily built for that type of trail, so when you're on the buffed out trails, it's not something you'll probably notice that much. And next up is the upper. So the upper is the biggest change in the new model of the Pegasus Trail. They went with a much more streamlined look in this version. It's still a gusseted tongue up here, but it does feel a little more cushioned compared to the prior model. You get a lacing system that allows you to lock in your midfoot a little bit better in this version as well. The prior model had this little bit of a gaiter that ended up not really doing much, and also this big pull tab. They got rid of that gaiter completely since it was kind of useless anyway, and kind of minimized the pull tab back here to make it a little more streamlined. The upper is mostly built of a thick perforated mesh, and when I say thick, it's definitely a thick material. There's times where I felt like it was a little hot. I also walked these right into the Atlantic Ocean to kind of test out their drainage capabilities, and they definitely do not drain out that well. I was doing an out and back, so I did 10K out, ran into the ocean, and on the 10K back, these were literally squishing the entire way back. That thick mesh upper, while it's very comfortable, it's not necessarily the best when it comes to water drainage or breathability. So next up is the drop. So the drop of this sneaker is actually 9.5 millimeters from heel to forefoot. These also weigh in just over 11 ounces for a men's size 10. Somehow these got a tiny bit heavier, just slightly, than last year's model. You'd think it would be lighter just because they went with a more streamlined upper here. However, maybe it's because of the tongue that got a little thicker and the mesh upper, but it possibly could add a little bit to the weight. So the final verdict of the Nike Pegasus Trail 3 is these are another super solid hybrid trail runner from Nike. I really enjoyed the Pegasus Trail 2, so I was kind of looking forward to this Pegasus Trail 3. I always feel like it's just a little unfortunate that they stick with the same midsole for 2 iterations. I know people will be happy about that if they really enjoyed the prior model. However, just being someone who buys a lot of sneakers, I'm always excited to see kind of complete overhauls of a certain model. So it would have been cool to see maybe an added Zoom Air unit in the forefoot or the heel stability fixed up a little bit. However, if you're looking for that shoe that is really comfortable on the roads, that can take you to a buffed out trail, and something that is very highly cushioned and comfortable to wear, even casually, because they've definitely improved over the prior model. But I'm also unsure whether or not this upgrade is really worth going for if you can find the Pegasus Trail 2 on sale somewhere. The Trail 2 has a better locked-in heel and somehow it's a tad lighter. Anyways guys, that's my review of the Nike Pegasus Trail 3. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.